So Carl Pye departed from OnePlus quite a while ago and he started his own company called Nothing. And with that he first started releasing, of course, some buds. But after that, he made his own phone. The Nothing Phone 1. And I have some opinion about it. And yes, this is my custom design that I made myself. Link in the description where you can check it out. Either way, quite a few months later, let's discuss the Nothing Phone 1 and what I think about it. Now, the Nothing Phone 1, overall I think it's a good phone, but there are some pointers that I don't really like about it. The approach is a little bit odd for me. So let's begin with the weirdest one for me. It's software experience. Software experience overall is fine, but there are some little gripes that I have that doesn't really benefit my day-to-day use. And this is in my case. Maybe the way you use your phone is different, but for me there are some ways that I use my phone in the day-to-day life. Beginning with, of course, the notifications and settings, swiping them down. For me, that's a little bit cumbersome. Not only are the icons way too large for easy control of several things that you have, of course, in your settings / notification bar, but also if you want to adjust the brightness of the display, you need to swipe it down twice to then adjust the brightness, because I like to do that manually instead of letting the phone decide for me. And again, as stated, those icons are far too large to properly control everything around the phone itself. I feel like I shouldn't have to scroll several pages, even though it isn't that many in there, but I feel like having to scroll through those pages doesn't make a lot of sense to me. I'd rather have them a little bit smaller, so I have several different icons on that single page. And then, of course, a gripe that I have with more brands, not just Nothing, but the fingerprint scanner is definitely too low. It's just a little bit too low, not a lot, but just a little bit too low, like a centimeter, maybe too low for me to properly control it, and where I don't have to, stretch out my thumb to get there. Even though the size of the phone is fine, just a little bit higher would have been really nice in terms of day-to-day use experience. Now, one big thing, of course, when it comes to the Nothing Phone 1 is that glimpse system. After using it for about 1.5 weeks, do I pay attention to it? Honestly, no, not really. Often I have my phone actually facing up instead of facing down, therefore I don't really pay attention to it. With that being said, I don't want to discourage people and brands to try something new, so therefore I wouldn't criticize it, because it's still a feature that is an extra on the phone itself, and therefore maybe some other people will like it and it could be a cool party feature. Talking about features, however, I will also, just like any other brand, will have to say that the miss and the lack of a 3.5mm headphone jack and micro SD is a real shame, including no charger as well. This can charge at 33 watts, which isn't very impressive, but it can, even though you don't really know, because you don't have a charger that is included with the phone itself. And I know a lot of people will defend it, but for me, having a charger included with the phone itself just should be a standard, because simply put, if I sell my phone, I sell it with my charger. Therefore, I should get it with the phone. Not to mention that with a lot of phones you have, of course, different charging speeds, and therefore, having 120 watt, for instance, for some phones, and then they're saying, well, you do need to get the charger extra, then I feel like that's not a feature anymore. You just remove that feature because you're not giving me that feature at all. You just give me the possibility of it. Either way, charger not included, no micro SD, and of course no 3.5mm headphone jack. For me, that's a little bit of a problem. And then, of course, let's talk a little bit about the unboxing experience, because this is quite a bit different. That box itself is quite reminiscent to OnePlus when they started, of course, with that whole box idea. But the thing is, if you want to repack it, it doesn't really work, because you don't really have the normal standard box. And I feel like Vivo, for instance, does that still the best. Really a nice display, like HTC did in the past as well. Having that really nice display of a phone when you get it, having that experience of a nice unboxing, that's somewhat of a miss when it comes to the Nothing phone. Again, this is a miss with a lot of brands, but with the Nothing phone, it feels like a one-time use. I know that's weird to say, but I just like a proper unboxing experience, and I don't think this is the way to go about it. Now let's discuss some positive things that I really like about it. To begin with, let's talk about the camera experience. One thing that I straight away have to say is that a lot of phones would simply add a third camera and say, ha, you get 3 cameras, but then it would be a lousy 2 megapixel sensor. And with the Nothing Phone 1, we don't get that. We actually have two good cameras for the price itself. It's not the best, but I think overall good cameras for the price itself. I can do a lot with it. Macro is good, main camera is good, and of course the ultra wide is solid as well. Overall, good experience with the camera, and depending on your environment, it can take some excellent shots as well. Especially if I look at the shots that I've taken in, of course, the store itself. Apparently a lot of people like that. It's not the best shots, I think, but still really good, and the subject itself really had a possibility to shine, and the camera helped in this department. So overall, I will have to give the camera a solid rating. Alright, so front-facing camera on a Nothing Phone 1, limited to 1080p and 30 frames per second. I don't really care for that much, so it doesn't really bother me, but yes, no, it's limited to that. While we're talking about photography and of course video, I wish you had a separate gallery app. Nothing Phone 1 doesn't have a separate gallery app, and I find Google Photos to be confusing and just annoying overall in terms of overview. So yeah, that's basically it. Right now, just taking pictures. We're trying to find some hills in the Netherlands, which is a challenge. And soon I will be traveling to either Belgium or Germany to take some really good shots. Because it's boring, you know, to not have at least some beautiful nature shots that have elevation to it. Using camera limited to 4K and 30 frames per second. So again, that's fine by me for a phone around this price. But just so you know, it's limited to that. Let's see, depending if it has jodder, which wouldn't be surprising, and looking at the preview, it definitely does. It is a little bit windy and quite a bit cold as well, so that's pretty nice. But anyway, a little bit of a view. Again, it's just really grey. There isn't much I can do about that, so I'm trying to go to a place where it looks nicer, simply because it is so limited. Of course you can zoom in, but that is of course digital. Now, when it comes to battery life, overall, again, here, I will have to give it credit. Battery life is excellent. It easily makes it to the end of the day, and I get about 8 hours of screen on time, which is really, really solid, especially compared to some other phones that I've used. Now, of course, this doesn't use the Snapdragon 8 Gen 1 that gets really hot. It uses the Snapdragon 778G, and therefore it doesn't get the heatness that you get with that CPU, and therefore battery life is beneficial for the phone itself. Again, really solid when it comes to set battery life, and I think overall the CPU inside the Nothing Phone 1 again is fine. For your day-to-day experience, it really doesn't bog down or have any lags that I can really mention. It just performs how it should, especially for the price itself. And talking about the price, this phone holds its value really well for some reason, more than some other brands out there. I think that's really appealing as well, because if you buy the phone and feel like you want to sell it later, it still holds some value compared to some other phones out there. Now let's talk a little bit about the display itself. Display is actually quite good. Brightness outside is solid, although I will have to say that I haven't used this in the summer, because simply put, it's quite a lot of rain outside and therefore there isn't a lot of sun. It's typical Dutch weather, and those from England, for instance, will know about it as well. It's just quite shitty, and therefore you cannot really properly test the brightness of the display. You can only do it artificially with lights around you and see how it does overall, and therefore I will have to say that there's an asterisk behind the display brightness, but overall from my experience, display brightness is really solid. So overall, Nothing Phone 1 for me left a good impression. I don't think it's the best value phone out there, because it really depends on what you are looking for. Because some phones focus more on a experience where the CPU is better, some focus more on the experience where the camera is better, and some focus more on a balanced experience. And I think that is where the Nothing Phone 1 excels at. It's a good balanced phone. It's not the best in any one sector, it's just good at having a balanced experience, and that makes this phone a really solid deal, depending on the price that you're paying for it, of course. especially with of course all the flagships going down in price. It gets harder of course for mid-range phones to really have a certain price and then say, well, I should look at something like this instead of, like for instance, Vivo X80 Pro. If it's now lower in pricing compared to this, yeah, sorry, but the Vivo X80 Pro wins easily compared to this. Either way, the Nothing Phone 1 I can easily recommend to anyone who wants a good balanced experience, and overall I really have not much to complain about it, apart from the software experience that I talked about. There are some gripes that I have with it, and of course if you do want a nice party trick, you do have that glimpse system inside the phone itself, which can be pretty nice and pretty cool, but for myself I really haven't used it or noticed it that much, simply because I don't put my phone down on the display itself. Either way, I hope you enjoyed this video, and of course if you did, don't forget to leave a like, subscribe, leave a comment below what you think about my custom design, of course from the Nothing Phone 1, and what do you think about the phone itself, what do you want to know about the phone, and of course yeah, hope you enjoyed it, and talk to you guys in the next